Welcome to Every Step Podcast. I'm Krystyna Weston.
And I'm Judith Beck.
Every Step is the podcast where career and life meet. Hey Judith, great to be back chatting again today.
It's wonderful to be here, even though it's so cold outside.
I know. Here in Australia, the weather has certainly turned in the southern states, which is kind of where you and I are, and other parts of the world are having balmy, beautiful, warm temperatures, and people are out in the sunshine. It's So what are we going to chat about today? There's a few things I think we had on the agenda. We're going to have some feedback around last episode, which was all around toxic people. We've had some really interesting feedback there. We're going to do an end of financial year stock take and talk about what that might mean for you personally in your career. And we're going to have a bit of a chat about why is everybody so damn negative?
Oh, my God. Well, I can tell you right now, I got so many texts and people giving me a quick call about the episode the last episode, the toxic one. So it really did hit a nerve with people. And that's because everybody's got them in their life.
That's so true.
And I think it's a thing you just have to keep refining what you do. And if you haven't listened to that episode, please go back and see, because, I wonder how many people did the exercise to see whether or not they've got a bit of toxicity in them. Because, that's the only way you're going to change.
Yeah, look in the mirror first.
Look in the mirror first. And, and that may tell you a little bit about whether or not you're judgmental or that you're focusing. And it kind of goes into what we're talking about today, about how to evaluate where you are. This is the end of the financial year. And I always thought, even when I was running my business, this is a good time to take stock about, where have I been? Where's my health? How happy am I? And am I productive? Where's my career going? And do a stock take. And you should do that I would actually say do it every 3 months, but at the very least, every 6 months. Because if you don't do that, you're going to get to the end of the year and you're going to go, what the hell happened? And you're not going to be able to catch things.
Yeah, we get on this treadmill, right? And we don't often stop to reflect. And we've talked about this in some of our past podcasts, the importance of stopping and reflecting. And I think this is a really good time to stop and reflect. And when I knew we were going to talk about this today, it brought up a bunch of stuff for me, because I know I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't really serve me, but it's scary to actually stop and reflect. So if I'm going to be honest, I'm exhausted, right? I'm feeling shattered. There's so much going on, so many balls up in the air. Am I being discerning about the balls that I'm throwing up in the air? Maybe I'm not being very discerning. Maybe I'm putting my energy into things that I really shouldn't be putting my energy into. And I'm wondering how many of us out there are actually doing that. We're exhausted. We're not stopping. We're not making time for ourselves. We're not spending time to reflect on what's bringing us joy and what's causing us upset. The hook into last episode. Yeah, I think there's a lot. If we stop, there's time to reflect, and we don't do that. I think anybody that's working, anybody that's busy, anyone that has a business, we don't take enough time to stop and do a stock take.
Well, I can guarantee you, if you don't do that, if you don't stop and evaluate and look at where things are, even like the exercise and for the toxic behaviors and all the things that you do, then I can guarantee you'll be complaining about the same thing in 6 months' time. And, there's an exercise, and I know I've talked about this before in the past, but it's worth saying again. It's basically life in motion or work in motion. And if you don't know where you are right now, or if you don't know why you're not productive, or you don't know why things aren't happening the way you want, that it only takes a week of you literally every day writing down everything you do during the day, and as a time in motion exercise.
That would be scary.
Yes, it would be scary. And you know why? Because at the end of the week, you're going to go, what a lazy SOB I am.
Really? Oh no, I think mine would be the opposite. It's like, what have I got on the go at the moment? I've got a sourdough on the go. I'm preparing a meal. I've got meetings I'm preparing for. I've got pitch packs I'm doing. I'm wrangling a 2-year-old dog that's high-spirited. The list goes on. I don't know which ball to pick up and which ball to put down.
Yeah, but what you're going to find out, and others will find out, anyone who does that exercise will find out what are the time wasters.
Oh, yeah.
They'll find out what are the things that I can delegate. Because I don't need to be doing this, I can delegate this. Or what are the things that I can put off for next week or next month that don't really need to be done right now? Like your sourdough bread. Sorry, but you can go to the store and buy one making it. So, and I know sourdough bread's expensive right now, but there's things that you will find in that exercise. You'll go, okay, I don't need to be doing this. One of the things that I've done that I notice that has made a big difference, and it kind of goes to when we get to the negativity talk, I have stopped watching the news for more than the first 15 minutes in the morning. So in the morning, the news is on. They say the headlines and the main thing. And if you notice, it just rolls over, repeat.
Does.
Over that, and that goes in your head, and you don't need to hear it more than once. All you need to be is up to speed on what's going on. That's good, but they tell you that in the first 15 minutes, and then that TV goes off, and I don't watch it again till the next day. And that is so, because when we went overseas for a month, when we were away for a month, we didn't watch any TV, and we didn't get on social media, and we didn't miss out on a thing at all. In fact, when we came back, it was like nothing happened. Nothing new happened, really. It was pretty much the same thing. And, I just think you look at those time wasters and you go evaluate, where are you spending your time that you don't need to, and where can you get more time?
Absolutely. So let's look at the different areas of our lives where we might do a stock take. So time wasters, that's a big one. That's a big one. The other one is, where are you allocating time for you? I know I'm really bad at this. I kind of play this bargaining game with myself. If I only achieve this or do that, then I'm deserving of having that round of golf or the time out with girlfriends or whatever. And that actually gets you into a negative, it's kind of linking into the negative mindset conversation. But I play that game unconsciously, but I know consciously that that's not actually really healthy. So where are you, in terms of stock taking of where you're at, where are you not giving yourself time and care? Because you're going to need that extra energy and that uplift to do all the things that you want to achieve in business and in life, or in your career and in life. What are some other stock take areas, Judith?
Well, what you're saying I bring it down to the 3 categories: health, happiness, and productivity. And, if you've got your health under control, there's a direct correlation with happiness.
Big one.
Right? So, and then how much are you laughing every day? Like, seriously, do you find at the end of the day that your laughter mode was non-existent? I'd be looking at those kind of things. Did you have
that's a good one?
Because laughter is really important for health. And, they say if you laugh a lot, you're going to probably live a longer life. So what are you doing to have fun during the day?
Yeah, that's
happy. And then when you do your stock take, your productivity meter. So how productive was I today? You don't have to be, a steam train every day.
You can't. I mean, if you listen to any of our special guests that we've had over the years, we listen to Vanessa Bennett. It's not possible, right? We set these impossible high standards for ourselves, And they're just unhealthy standards, and they're not actually productive.
Exactly. And so productivity can mean things to different people depending on where they are in their life. And they might be going, well, I want to be productive today, and I want to read the rest of that book I'm reading. So I guess the opposite to productivity is the couch potato doing nothing. So, maybe, I mean, and
the
also,
other extreme is the rat on the treadmill that doesn't stop.
Exactly. So when you do your 6-month evaluation, you're kind of looking, how productive was I overall? Like, what did I achieve in these last 6 months, as far as what I wanted, what I wanted to. Now, if we're looking at that from a career perspective, and we evaluate that stock take from a career perspective, at the end of the 6 months, which we're looking at the end of June, because that's the end of financial year.
In Australia, it is, yep.
Australia. And that's where, like, I know with my businesses, we did our reviews, we evaluated bonuses, and we also budgets, and we also looked at next 6 months. Now, a lot of companies will have their reviews now, which is not always the best thing for the employee, because if they didn't have a good year last year, they're not going to be so willing to give out increases and bonuses and things like that. So you, as the employee, when you do your stock take and get ready for your performance review, you got to have the ammunition ready. And don't leave it to the last minute. That's, we've talked about that before. Did you make your targets? Did you go over and above what was required? And what value add did you add to that role? Those are the things that you need to know when you're going to have a conversation with your boss. That is, the proof is in the pudding. Yeah. If you haven't made your budgets, if you haven't done anything extra in your role, well, you're probably not going to get a review or increase or a bonus. So and then that will
and the performance of the company overall. In smaller organizations, you've got to be mindful of the performance of the company overall. If the company's not winning deals, if the company itself isn't signing up new contracts, bringing in revenue, it's going to be tough, right?
Absolutely. And so if you're not meeting your targets, and don't wait till the end of the year to sort that all out. Find that out now so that you can start putting things in place to alleviate that, and start going toward, or even having that conversation with your boss to say, these targets aren't realistic for these reasons.
Yeah, you've got to manage all those expectations and make sure you are clear about what the KPIs are and how you're going to be rewarded.
Exactly. So, it's always hard to evaluate and review yourself. It's actually harder to do that than to review your staff or the people around you, because people are a lot more critical when they're talking about other people.
Sure, they sure are. They sure are.
But when you got to put the mirror in front of you and really evaluate, where am I? How's my health going? Am I happy right now? Am I happy? And if I'm not happy, why aren't I happy? Yeah. And what can I do so that by the time Christmas rolls around, I'm going to be in a better position? And how can I improve my productivity as well?
And that health and happiness link is actually quite strong. So if you've got some niggling health issues, spend some time reflecting to understand what's going on for you at an emotional level and at a happiness level. Because chances are, if you're unhappy, or if you're really stressed, or if there's things going on for you at an emotional level, it'll play out in your body.
Absolutely. Those three things are like a domino.
Yeah.
If you're not healthy, you're probably not going to be as happy. If you're not happy, you're probably not going to be productive.
Correct.
You're in the back of your mind, you're going to be feeling tired, feeling bad, so you can only do so much. So those three things, if you sort those things out one after another, it will probably work out for you.
Yeah. I'm going to add one other thing to our stock take: the quality of your relationships.
Yes.
The quality of your friendships, the time and energy you spend into building and cultivating and maintaining friendships. and hanging out, to your point about laughter, hang out with people where you can laugh.
Absolutely. Because if you hang around with a bunch of negative people, they will bring you down, and that will affect your health and your happiness. So, have people around you that are positive. They're not bringing you down all the time. That take stock of that as well. And who are these people? And that goes again to looking at your own self, how you're treating those relationships, and start looking at how are you communicating with your friends and your family. And one of the things I've always said is that when people communicate via text and via emails, they have to be so much more
Careful.
aware of how it comes across. Because I can tell you, I've gotten a few texts and things like that in the past where I've gone, who do you think you are? And seriously, you couldn't even say, hi, hello, how are you? Or you couldn't say your name with maybe a little smile emoji or something to make me know that what you're actually saying is lighthearted, because there are things that people can say that can come out that can mean two different things.
Absolutely. So be conscious in your communication.
Conscious of how, I've used the example in the past about references when people have said, you would be really lucky to get, Krystyna to work for you. And that would be a positive, right? Or they could say, wow, you'd be really lucky to get Krystyna to be working for you. And that's got a double meaning, right? So the same thing applies in text messages and emails about, and we're going to talk more about this when we do our networking episode, next episode, but it really does make a big difference. So do a stock take on how you're communicating to people, and be your own critic. That's the only way you can improve.
Yeah. And that takes time. We've had these conversations in other podcasts. It's really important to stop and do that reflection piece. And sometimes what you see when you stop and reflect, you may not like what you see, but it's really important to actually sit back, sit with yourself, and be, what's the right word? Be objective.
Be objective. That's why you have scales, right? Because when people weigh themselves,
it freaking tells you what that number is.
The numbers don't lie. You might be really fearful about getting on that scale again in 6 months' time because your jeans don't fit you like they used to. But the reality is the truth are in that numbers.
But I really love that. I know we've laughed about it, but I really love that analogy, because the truth is in the quality of your relationships. The truth is in how people respond and react to you. There's a lot of other signals that are the truth, and it's about looking at what that's telling you, the kind of virtual scale.
And start evaluating how you are trying to be a happier and a nicer person to other people. And it's kind of like, I use that example in my book where you go into an elevator and everybody's looking at their devices. But if you're the person who goes in that elevator and you see someone and you go, good morning, somebody might actually say good morning back to you. And that actually makes you feel good. And if they don't, it says more about them than it does about you.
So true.
And it's another part of, especially these days, when we're only going to the office so many times, that person could be somebody who's going to be an important stakeholder. But it makes you feel good. When you make an effort, it makes you feel good. You might not get the response that you want, but if you keep doing it, eventually you will.
That's an interesting segue to our why are people so negative conversation. And I'm wondering if that's because we're actually upset with our lot. We're actually unhappy ourselves. And it's really easy to be negative about everything else because actually we don't want to take the time to reflect, stop, and understand why we ourselves are niggly and upset about things that we're not achieving or things that we're not accomplishing. So much easier to be angry at somebody else and blame somebody else.
It's 100%. Well, so before the podcast, I Googled, why is everybody so angry in 2024? And the first thing that came up is change is coming at an accelerated rate. The unfolding year is slated to be extremely eventful. There are major world elections. There are fears of climate chaos, with 2023 being recorded as the hottest year on record. So there is a legitimate fear for 2024. And I thought to myself, that's absolutely the very first thing that came up. And I thought to myself, well, it's almost like it's saying, like making it a self-fulfilling prophecy, like, oh, because of the elections, because of this, because of that,
because of the war here and the war there,
we should all be negative, right? And there's only certain things from an individual point of view that we can control, and you can take it on. You can take everything on in the world, but you can't do anything about a lot of it. So you can only you can vote, obviously, that you can put your 2 cents in worth voting, but taking it, it's kind of like we were talking about last week. When you take on toxic people, the majority of time, the people in your group who are talking about that toxic person, they're talking about him. It's consuming real estate in their head, but
absolutely,
that toxic person doesn't give you 2 minutes in theirs. Like, they don't even know you're talking, they don't even know. So you're
expending valuable real estate, valuable energy. Energy is our real estate, right?
Exactly. And, and that all breeds into, negativity, of being negative. And I think people, look, unfortunately, all across the world, the higher cost of living. I couldn't believe it when I went back to the States, how expensive everything was. Things here in Australia are expensive as well. So the cost of living has gone through the roof. And also with interest rates going up. I mean, I can't even imagine young families, any families for that matter, who, their mortgage payment was one price.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now it's tripled.
A lot of financial stress.
They've got that. And then also the elderly, the pensioners, they haven't got enough. There are so many things in this world to be negative about right now, but there's always been negative. And then, like, I just finished my mom's book, the one that I did for her 100 Years of Millie. I just finished it. And in that, with all the stories about what they went through during World War II, I'm telling you, nothing compares.
Nothing compares
today to what they went through.
Unless you're in a war zone. Unless you're in, thank you for clarifying, because that's so true. Unless you're in a war zone, the majority of us living in America and living privileged lives,
we haven't had to go through any of those hardships that they did back then, and they did it without complaining. Or we really do have it pretty easy, but that's not taken away from the people who are trying to pay their mortgages, and that is tough. I mean, I remember when I grew up, my dad, like I talk about when he lost his job and they were trying to make the mortgage payments. Again, they went through it during that time as well.
Every generation has had its trials. And I think it goes back to something that you were saying a little bit earlier, Judith. It's what is in your circle of control. What can you control? Focus on what you can do to make a difference. And part of it is, how can you shift your attitude?
I love that, Krystyna. What is in your circle of control? And that would be an absolute great exercise to do as well. Physically draw a circle of control and start writing in
what can I control? What can I not control? We can't control the war in Ukraine and Russia, and we can't control the what's going on in Gaza. Like, it's all terribly upsetting, whichever side of the fence you sit on. It is all terribly upsetting for everybody involved. Can we control it?
No, 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 we cannot control it. And, I understand, because some people will say, well, you have to, the power of one, you have to speak up. And yes, okay,
By all means.
like protesting is everybody's right as long as it's peaceful and that it's done in a proper way. I'm not, these vandals and things.
What's going on is horrendous. All of
right.
that.
All that is horrendous, and it actually takes away from the real cause, and it actually turns people away from the cause because they think these are just a bunch of people that are violent. And that also feeds into negativity.
Correct.
And so we see that on TV, we get angry about it.
Well, there's this culture of divisiveness, right? You're either right or wrong. You're either on the left or on the right. You're either on this side or that side. You're either for this or for that. And there's nothing in between. And it's almost like social media and everything else, and it's all trying to pitch us against each other because they can control us.
Exactly. And I'm all for the ones who are like the groups that speak out for injustices, for for all the different, like there are so many different things going on. I'm all for people speaking out for that because I think that's what we need to do. I mean, we have women's rights because
women spoke out, brave women
out in the 20s, right? They started to speak, and so we're living a good life because of them. Thank you very much. And same thing with having a democracy because people fought for our freedom. So, there's a need for people to speak out, but it's kind of like what is in that circle of control for you when you do your stock take, so that you can live a happier, healthier and more productive life. And then try not to get too consumed with things that are outside of your control because it will drive you nuts.
Limit your social media. Back to your original comments. Don't watch so much television. Don't listen to the news so much. Stay aware, read, but be selective.
If you're going to watch television, watch some things that are fun. Like watch some, some comedy.
Watch Bridgerton.
I love Bridgerton.
Okay. Yeah. Who else can confess to having binged on Bridgerton?
Oh, yes. I love that. But yeah, those are things that you can, that it's like that's something you watch on your couch potato day.
That's exactly. I mean, we're not saying not to stay aware. And I think there's the other extreme of not tuning in and not caring about what's going on. I think it's really important to be informed, and it's really important to understand what's happening on all sides of politics and in terms of what's going on globally. It's important to have that awareness. We're not, so I don't think either of us, Judith, is suggesting to switch off, but it's actually come at it with an objective perspective. We are all imperfect. Everybody on each side is imperfect. They're making imperfect decisions.
And just sort out what your time, the time that you put into these things, that you're not, and that's where that time and motion study individual for you is good, because it will tell you if you've spent 3 hours on Facebook, or if you've spent, that's ridiculous. You got to cut all that out and block those times, because it really,
they're massive time wasters. The amount of time you can spend, and this is what the apps are so adept at doing. If you've subscribed to Shein or Temu or Facebook or any Instagram, TikTok, they're going to be pinging you with messages, and they're all time wasters. They're all time wasters.
Time wasters, exactly right. And so look at where you want to value your time. So your time is valuable. So do you really want to be wasting it on, and your phone will tell you how long you've been on Facebook. So that's an easy one.
That's our most valuable commodity, our time, right? Our time and our energy, where we put our time and where we invest our energy in work, in friendships, in pursuits. Where are we putting our time?
Exactly. Because that when someone says, oh, I couldn't get back to you, or I couldn't do that, or they said, because I didn't have any time. I'm thinking, no, hold
Nah,
on.
no. Do you know,
I've
that
seen
really
you on
winds me
social
up.
media. I've seen you on, and see, this is the thing with your colleagues and your boss. If you start saying, "Oh, I didn't have time," but they can see how long you've been. They can see that you've been on social media. They can see that you've commented to five comments. All those things take time. And then if you
Correct.
say to your boss, "Oh, sorry, I missed that deadline because I didn't have," they're not idiots.
I didn't have a moment. I didn't have a moment. I've been so busy. It's like, I'm sorry. That's a real wind up for me when people say that, because it's about managing your priorities. And if you're putting time into social media and other pursuits and you haven't done whatever it is that is important, then there's something wrong with the way you're managing your priorities, or you don't have a list, or you don't have a reminder. But don't say you've been too busy. Oh, I didn't have a moment. It's like, I'm sorry, I forgot. Or, you've got to be honest about why you didn't do it. It's often not because you were too busy. It's because you didn't prioritize it.
I would much rather someone say, "Oh, I stuffed up."
Yeah.
I remember I used to say to my staff years ago, I used to say, "Do not tell me that you've missed the deadline at the deadline date and time. If you can't meet that deadline, I want to know
In
in
advance.
advance, because we'll get other people in to help, or I'll help you, or whatever. But do not tell me, because that would drive me nuts." And
Correct.
there's no excuse for that,
We'd
because
be negative. We'd be negative people if that happened, wouldn't we?
we well, I would, because we always work very strict to-do list and time scale, all that stuff. You had to in that kind of business. But yeah, I would rather someone say it slipped through the cracks. I'm sorry, it won't happen again.
Yeah. So
You know,
you've got to continually
oh,
renegotiate priorities. I think if this is a work context and you're slipping for whatever reason, have those conversations, renegotiate priorities, be clear about, we don't have infinite time and energy. We've got finite time and energy, and finite, potentially in organizations, finite resources. So keep renegotiating those priorities. Keep them as open and active conversations, but don't just go silent. That's the worst thing you can do.
well, I always think that it's good to actually ask a friend, "What do you think my strengths and my weaknesses are?" Somebody that you know that will tell you, or a colleague that isn't part of your team, or part of your, not too, somebody who's more senior. Ask them, "What do you think I can do better? How do you think my communication skills are?" Somebody who's not part of your, not, that will give you unbiased. But also, you got to be prepared for their answer. And if someone gives you critique, you can't be defensive about it.
Oh, yeah.
You can't, if they say, "Well, you do tend to be late a lot. I do notice that at meetings, you do kind of come in 5 minutes late." If you start going, "Yeah, but I'm in traffic, and yeah, but people always stop me in the hall, blah, blah,"
The lift's not working. The lift broke again.
that's not, excuses will not get you. You need to say, "Thanks for that. I'll be aware of that in the future. I'll take that on board. Thanks for that. I appreciate you." Because I can guarantee you, if you're defensive, they'll never, ever give you advice again or feedback, because nobody wants to be challenged. Nobody wants that. So I think, yeah. So I think, look, I think that's a good place to end. And
I agree.
next episode, we're going to talk about everything networking in today, and this is it'll be a good episode, I think, to continue on stock taking. God, I can't talk today. Because the year going forward, coming up to Christmas, it's usually a very important time in businesses to get those numbers back up and achieve things. So it's good to be able to look, how are you networking these days in this world of working from home and halfway in the office and that type of thing, and how are you providing the right service and customer service as well? Because I think that has really gone downhill in all different kind of businesses. I very rarely see customer service excellence like we used to have. So we're going to talk about that as well. So
So our takeout from today is stop, reflect, and do a personal and career stock take. So if you're listening at the end of this podcast, just stop for 5, 10, 15 minutes and do your own personal stock take.
Absolutely. And can I just say, could you guys please refer the podcast to your friend, subscribe? That's the only way we're going to get it out there, because at the end of the day, we know that with the social media algorithms, Krystyna and I have found out especially that with all the different social media, where they're not pushing it out there because there's a lot of podcasts. So we hope you like it. And if you like it, subscribe and tell your friends.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And thanks for listening.
Until next time. Bye.
Later. Bye.
For more information about Every Step and our guests, head to everysteppodcast.com. To be notified of new podcasts, please subscribe via your favourite listening platform. And of course, follow us on social media and direct message us to share your ideas about guests or topics.